Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started because I know some people need to head to the airport I mean, thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. That's above and beyond the call of duty, especially in the VA system. So we have an agenda, but we're going to go a little bit out of order so that we can accommodate a couple of different things. But we have a number of folks online. So if you do want to make a comment or ask a question, please step up to the microphone so they can hear that and respond accordingly if they need to. I'm going to give Dr. Chauncey a heads up right now because as soon as I'm done with this, we're going to do the first out of order thing and talk about SWOG S2209, which is a myeloma study that I think will be of special interest to this group. So I don't think there's any. Is there anything else? Leslie, you're online. Is there anything else I'm missing in terms of opening the meeting?
Good morning. No, I don't think so. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss the storefront first, or if you'd like to save that for last, so to speak.
I think we're going to go to that right after Dr. Chauncey. So,
Alrighty.
Because Dr. Yee's here as well, and she's got to get to the airport, and I heard there's like traffic out there, so on the way to O'Hare. So, so real-time considerations for this. All right. So, Tom, are you ready? Would you like to just introduce SWOG 2209 for us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Combo phone and video computer. If Christine's on, I'll let her present the protocol, or I can briefly run through it. There's some issues I wanted to discuss. 2209 is soon to be activated. Christine, do you want to discuss just the general overview, or you want me to go ahead?
Sure, Tom. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can just briefly talk to the committee because this is not the first time that we discuss this concept. And so just to update our VA committee, the status of this protocol. Protocol development going pretty well, and we are waiting for the final protocol approval from the sponsor as well as CTAP. And contract and the budget are being finalized, and hopefully by the end of this year, we are able to activate this study. And also we have several sub-studies built in, and we have strong support from different committees, including DEI, including imaging committee, and also the translational medicine. So, and also we have another sub-study, which is anticoagulation use DOACs for this patient population on RAVs. So this is overall could be ambitious, but at the very first step, we actually want to activate the main study along with the PRO component already built into the study. Just to refresh everybody's mind, this is for frail, newly diagnosed multiple myeloma patients comparing two frontline regimens. One is RVD Light, which is Revlimid, bortezomib, and dexamethasone at a reduced dose and dosing frequency, to be compared with another frontline therapy for this patient population, which is DARA-RD, daratumumab, Revlimid, and dexamethasone. And it will have the component of induction for 9 cycles, followed by the maintenance therapy. We do have like a translational component built at time of the diagnosis, post-induction, and also 1 year post maintenance therapy. So hopefully we can learn a lot from this study, especially for this real-world patient population. So we feel our VA network involvement is very important to the study, and that's why we Tom has spent a lot of efforts try to make it work, but there's some of the challenges that I will leave to Tom to discuss for more details.
Okay,
Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
So this is, I think this is going to have the issues have broader implications. And that is that the clonoSEQ, which is one way to look at MRD, is part of the protocol. And I think not just this protocol, but also clinical care and also protocols, I think it's pretty clear that MRD is become one of the pivotal endpoints and prognosticators in multiple myeloma, and it's certainly data you want to collect. And that's become a problem within the VA, is that individual pathology departments don't want to spend the money on MRD. And my belief, and this is something that I've been aggressively working on locally, but it's got to move centrally now, is that there needs to be central support for cooperative group trials, whether it's 2209 or another myeloma group study, or really any study through a cooperative group. If the cooperative groups, if it's FDA approved and the cooperative group puts it in the study, whether or not it's a pharmaceutical or a test, then payers, whether they're VA or private payers, are obligated to support that. And that's the issue. I don't expect there's going to be anyone in this room who knows how to solve that, but please contact me if you have some ideas. I'm working centrally. Steve's aware of this, and Christine's intimately aware of it. But that's the problem. And I think that Christine would say that and agree that you can still enroll, but it's certainly going to confound endpoints and make VA patients not really valuable if they're not able to get all the necessary testing. So I think that's all I would say. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on that.
Yeah, our universal problem solver, Dana Sparks, has stepped up to the mic, so she might be able to help her.
There have been 2 additional developments, one related to the clonoSEQ and one also related to other study flexibility issues that have happened during this group meeting. So one of the questions that came up, we brought up in our quality initiative meeting, is how to deal with this clonoSEQ issue. And so part of the problem that we were facing is because of the CMS clinical trials rules, that you can, if you pay for some patients on a clinical trial, if you pay for a test, you have to pay for all patients. One of the things that Dr. Blanke actually identified this, and Nathan Erickson initially identified it, and Dr. Blanke confirmed that because VA patients, VA institutions don't necessarily bill CMS, that maybe those rules don't apply in the VA setting. So we're going to explore that just a little bit more. We may be able to get some additional funding support to offset the clonoSEQ cost specifically for VA institutions, VA patients. So if we can determine, if we can find out from CMS whether there's an exception to those rules for clinical trials for VA participants, we might for this trial, not necessarily for every trial, be able to solve that. And then additionally, I wanted to mention, because we talked about it at the last meeting, that we have been working across the NCTN to ensure that we are able to continue much of the trial flexibility that we implemented during COVID, and get all of the approvals necessary in place with the NCI, the FDA, OHRP, CIRB, all of the acronyms, to approve additional flexibilities in clinical trials, which will help all of our community sites, but in particular the VA sites. And so we've been working with the NCTN to try to develop some language that can either be a boilerplate template that is included in all protocols that makes it very clear to sites what they can and can't do, through the use of non-registered physicians, non-registered sites, what kinds of things, standard of care treatment might be given outside of the NCTN setting that would make it easier for patients not to have to travel, all of those things. And we've had some movement on that. And we're pushing the NCI to have a set of language that can be used across all NCTN and NCORP studies so that we're not having to pick and choose for each protocol. And I think that probably through the end of this year and the beginning of next year, we'll be having those discussions. So I kind of hope that we'll be able to have protocol language that we can insert maybe even by spring.
So yeah, it sounds like we have kind of two approaches, the short-term approach for this study that we can look at. And then as Tom mentioned, we need to talk to VA central office at ORD and other program levels to be sure they support this kind of thing. And then I've already talked, Sharon Palmer and I have already talked about going through some of the protocols and identifying places where we can incorporate VA specific language so it's not, we don't have to re-engineer that every time a protocol comes up, that there's standard language for each study. So that's going to be an ongoing effort. And so, that's Sharon back there. So if you have any ideas, be sure you speak with Sharon or reach out to her later. She's a great resource for us and also a veteran. So
That's encouraging. Thank you.
probably better news than you thought you'd get this morning, right, Tom? All right. I think we'll now move on to our storefront announcement. As we've heard, one of our efforts as we transition the Hope Foundation integration grant from a single site model to the storefront model, and to mimic or expand what's occurred in Vision 1 and the Boston area of a hub and spoke model to advance clinical trials to veterans. And so we recently, our review committee, which I'd like to acknowledge as Colleen Shannon, Corey Domenico, and Mary Brophy in Boston, considering that they actually had the knowledge of how a storefront should work, we thought that would be the best review group to look over these programs. And then we had additional support from the program office of Leslie and Connie to help us identify how the programs were doing already before that. So we had a total of 4 applications. One application was actually to be a spoke, and we're going to hopefully incorporate them as soon as we can. But our awardee is Dr. Mike Liss and the San Antonio, South Texas VA, and they are going to incorporate the North Texas and Central Texas VA medical centers as the first 2 spokes, and then expand beyond that as they kind of get their feet wet and get things going. They have a great model and a great plan going forward. So it was really, it looks like it's going to definitely be successful. Mike, did you want to say anything?
I think just I'm a urologist and surgeon, and Paramita Dada is our medical oncologist. And I think SWOG is really important to team up with different types of specialties. And I think that's what kind of helped us think through different problems. So, and I don't consider it one site. I'm hoping that other people would join us and we'd still be able to communicate with everybody. And this is kind of just the first one of many. And then hopefully everybody in the room could expand and help each other out. So hopefully it's just the beginning.
Yeah, and I think to that is, there's a lot of interest, and we'll talk a little bit about that Navajo meeting later, but especially, we heard a lot of interest in the storefront model in general. And so if anybody's got any ideas of how to fund additional storefronts, that would be great, because there's a huge need out there. One of the reasons we transitioned to this model was the Boston Vision One storefront was at capacity. They couldn't take anymore. And they continually have people asking to, join that storefront, because the model is really something that works for VA, and to bring some of our sites that can't meet normal accrual standards on board. And this is a great way to do it and get those things out there, and actually enhances, I think, something else that SWOG and NCI are looking at, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's a big thing. So any ideas for additional funding for more storefronts? We'll work on it. We'll jump on it. If you're independently wealthy, hit the lottery. So anything like that. Yeah, maybe we can all throw in a couple bucks and put in a Mega Millions ticket or something. All right. Dr. Huang, are you on board? Are you online now?
I am.
Oh, great. So can we share his screen?
Yeah.
So he's going to talk to us about, I lost all this, but about lung cancer in the VA and some data he's collected.
Thank you. So this past month, I sent out a survey to the lung cancer community members just to have an idea if they have worked with the VA community or are aware of the VA community, as well as their, if they have any lung cancer trials open at the VA and their impression of the VA. So this is not a scientific survey. It's a very formal survey, and I probably should have worked with Dr. Bailey to get more responses. There were 75 members in that email, and I got responses on 13 of them. But this is the response that we have so far. So the first question I have here, I asked them, are they aware of the SWOG VA committee? And interestingly, the majority of the respondents was not aware there was a SWOG VA committee. The second question is, does your institution work with an affiliated medical center? And the majority actually did work with a VA medical center, which I think is very encouraging. Now, the next question was, if your institution has an affiliation with the VA medical center, does it have SWOG lung trials open? And only a quarter of them had lung trials open. 25% did not have lung trials open, and 41, almost 42% was not aware that there was a SWOG lung trial open. So I think this is a huge opportunity here to try to get the SWOG lung trials open in the VA centers. The next question asked was, if your institution does not have an affiliation, what was the reason for that? And then the 1 year, 40% was because there was no VA medical center in the area. None of them said there was no interest from the interest or anything work with the VA. So there's a few here that says 40% that there's no interest from the VA to work with the institution, which is a little surprising here, because I think most of the VA would be interested in working with a institution, partner institution to do clinical research. But then the 20% said there's interest on both sides, but there's been challenge to figure out the details of the open studies of the VA. So that's another opportunity here to try to get some of the SWOG lung studies open. The next question was, how can the SWOG committee helped the accrual of patients in the lung trial. And first one here, 46% says open more SWOG lung trial. Number 3 here says work with investigators from the SWOG lung committee, 7%. And then the other one, there was a greater response here. We had a higher percentage here. It was promote the SWOG lung trials at the VA Medical Center. So again, I think it's to promote and opening those lung trials within the VA Medical Centers or the institution. And how can a SWOG committee engage with the SWOG lung committee? So of course, one here has a VA committee represented at 10. The lung committee, I think 30% here mentioned that would be one way to increase interaction. The second was to have a lung cancer committee representing at 10, the VA committee 15%. That's not the predominant response. And the majority says to have a specific meeting between the VA committee and the lung committee. I think this might be something to explore to try to increase the interaction. And then how
Dr. Wang, you're kind of fading in and out, so we're having some difficulty hearing you. Yes, it is.
Okay. And, 100% of the respondents said it was very important to have SWOG lung trials open in order to improve the trial access to veterans. And then the last one is, what's your overall impression of the VA Medical Center's ability to conduct SWOG lung trials? A small percentage mentioned it was fully capable. So this is just impression. We're not going by any scientific data here. This is just the respondent's impression. And then fully capable, 46%, somewhat capable, 3%, 38%, and none of them responded was not capable. So I think the VA certainly has the capability to conduct trials, SWOG trials. So I think overall, the surveys showing that we need to try to increase awareness of the VA committee, even within the SWOG members. The majority of the institutions of members does work with the VA institution, and that we should try to see if we can somehow increase the number of lung trials within the VA, and probably potentially have a separate meeting between the VA committee and the lung cancer committee members. Thank
you. Any questions for Dr. Wang? I think there's some take-home messages for us there that we need to market our committee a little bit better, and we'd also need to market the lung cancer trials a little better to our VA sites. They may not know what fits us best or what trials fit them best, but we could maybe just identify some of those, maybe get a small group together to and I think one of the things that Mike and I talked a little bit about last night was he was asking, if we have website support for the storefront and some other things. I think there's maybe some things we can do. Maybe we can borrow from Navigate a little bit of creating some collaborative workspaces for VAs that might not just include SWOG, but maybe it's a SWOG Navigate. I was going to mention a little later, we've already had some informal discussions with the NRG, our NRG sister committee, who is just starting up. Their NRG is pursuing a VA committee or work group as well. And I think we can all share those kind of things. It's, as often said, it's a team sport, and they're part of our team too. So we can look to that, because I think there's a lot of benefit of working with NRG for a lot of our GU trials and that require some radiation therapy. Anything else to add, Dr. Horn?
No, I think I would just mention that maybe I can work with you and Dr. Davis on the lung cancer committee to try to maybe set up that separate meeting between the institution, maybe by next meeting.
Okay, great. The next thing we'd like to talk about is, and I'll have have Casey come up here, is the clinical trials partnership in SWOG, and it's it's a pharma SWOG partnership, and I'm going to give a brief description of that. And I think 3 years ago, this isn't something VA really could have considered, but just prior to the pandemic, for those of you who may not be aware, VA allows use of commercial IRBs and an increasing amount of collaboration with pharma and even multi-platform kind of groups. So through COVID, we've done a lot of platform trials in COVID, Act 4, the active trials, and continuing to do those. So this seems like a good fit, and something where what we have is called the Partnered Research Program in VA, which helps us place pharma trials. And Casey will describe what they do, which is different, but I think those can work together. So can you stand to the mic real quick before you?
When you use a commercial IRB, you will still have to go through the local IRB.
No.
It replaces the.
Yes.
Because when we use a central IRB, or VA local IRB still has.
No. You can only have one IRB. But we can talk about that. I'll let Casey go, and then that might be an educational piece we need to bring forth. Because as a central IRB person, I'm well aware that some local IRBs don't completely understand their lack of role in a central review process.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is a learning opportunity for me to sit in with you all, so I'm excited to figure out how we might work together. I'm Casey Dawson. I work in the group chair's office under Dr. Blanke as Assistant Director of Administration for the group. But I also work really closely with Dr. Albane on a new effort, SWOG Clinical Trials Partnerships, which some of you may have heard of. We've been talking a lot about it because we're excited. So Clinical Trials Partnerships has been around for a while, but what's new about it is this venture building portfolios that are fully non-federally funded. And so we're partnering with industry to build infrastructure to run clinical trials outside of the federal mechanism. And so what that means is we have some opportunities that we don't necessarily have within the NCTN. And I think we're here to kind of talk about how maybe the VA sites can participate in the CTP trials. So what we're going to be doing is contacting all SWOG member sites about these trials, and there'll be a small, hopefully short feasibility assessment process to see if you're a good fit. We do have a central IRB as well. We're using the Western IRB, or it's WCG IRB, formerly the Western IRB, as our central IRB. So we're hoping to streamline those activities as well. And I'm hoping that it looks a lot like SWOG trials. We're trying to make it as simple as possible for all the sites because we want as many sites to participate as possible. We do have a GU study. You wanted me to mention the GU study, and I don't have all the details in front of me, so I apologize. But that's one study that may be interesting to VA population.
And there's a lung cancer one as well.
There is a lung cancer one as well.
Yeah, so I think the difference with this, as Casey kind of mentioned, is that it's not like a SWOG study where like all players can come in and kind of join. You do have to do the feasibility and kind of like you normally would for a pharma study. But I think it gives us additional opportunities. And Western IRB is a VA-approved commercial IRB that we can use. And our plan is to work with the Partnered Research Program, who helps smooth things out on the front end with VA to identify these things. And also with our disease committees, because you guys work with the disease committees in developing these protocols. So, we have lung representation, myeloma, and others that, they can identify things that would make it, that could be problems for VA accrual. And hopefully the sponsors will understand that VA is a great place for diversity, inclusion in trials, and that making it easier for VA to accrue will meet all our needs. So,
Thank you.
questions? And
Hi, I'm Caitlin from Rocky Mountain Regional VA, and I just have a quick question. I think this is a really wonderful opportunity. The one thing that I see come about with some of our collaborative work and when we do just multi-VA site work is the variability in our budgetary needs with industry. And I was wondering if that's something that's already kind of baked into how the CTP works to allow flexibility in budget, or if we've had some processes with some studies where the trial's been really, really extended on the regulatory and finance side because VAs couldn't agree on a budget. And it's a lot easier if we can kind of set our own budgets and figure that part out. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. It is so important for me to be here today and hear this, but also just in general, talking with sites and getting an understanding of what the needs actually are. We are planning on setting budgets. We're hoping that we have a solid understanding of what the needs are, but I know that it varies from site to site. The plan currently is that we'll have set dollar amounts that hopefully are able to cover the effort. We wouldn't be negotiating separate budgets with every site. It's kind of like, here's what we have to offer, and then you get to decide if it's something that your site can do or not. But we're hoping, because we've gotten such great feedback, that we're doing our best to give you enough to do the work. Thank you.
all right, any other questions for Casey or comments? All right, so we'll continue to explore that. I have I'm going to be going on leave here, but after we get back, I'm going to be meeting with the Partnered Research Program people, Grant Wong and Chris Akaroff, and we'll try to get this all coordinated and start laying the groundwork for maybe some additional study opportunities. The next thing on our agenda is the NCI Central IRB, which for some reason my computer's trying to follow my agenda. We have, I saw Diana on the list. I don't know if Laura's called in as well. There's been a few issues with the use of the NCI Central IRB by VAs, and they can describe that better. They did send us a couple of handouts, so I think we're going to have to send those out later.
There are handouts in the back table for you to pick up.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Leslie got those. And so Diana, do you want to start? And like I said, I don't know if I see Laura on or not.
Yes, yes. My name is Diana Orr, and I'm the local context coordinator for all the VAs participating in the NCI-CIRB. I am responsible for reviewing all the worksheet submissions that are sent to us, and we have recently had some challenges with the review of what we call the annual signatory institution worksheet. Those issues have been pertaining to the boilerplate language, which was revised by the ORD in April of 2022. And there have been subsequent revisions to it, with the most current being July of 2022. We've had some sites where they have entered the guidelines into the worksheet, has their boilerplate where the guidelines clearly state that it should not be used, has their final boilerplate template. It's just a guideline. So we've experienced many back and forth rejections of worksheets due to that, which have extended the length of time that we have spent on trying to finalize the review of an annual institution worksheet for our site. And as well as the incorporation of specific language that per my discussions with the ORD shouldn't be included. I believe it's a lot of template language from the VA consent forms. And so we do have a quick guide that identifies what sections of the SERB approved consent forms cannot be modified, are not, do not permit additional language. And I don't think that we see a lot of sites make use of that guideline to help them understand what can be inserted and what cannot. And let me start off by saying, I'm sorry, Laura could not attend today, so she is not online. And she wished she could have been, but she had some other obligations. I think that has been our biggest issue. The other has been oversight. There are 3 questions that pertain to oversight at AVA, and they're broken down into 4 questions. We find that some sites just reference their policies. We like to see a response, not reference to a policy. The review time is limited for our local context subcommittee board members, so that we'd like to give them at least enough information in front so that when they're looking at that worksheet, they can at least say, okay, here's this information. Does it coincide with the policy that they provided as reference? That's been one of our issues, as well as that when we look at the hierarchy of oversight for VAs, and when we ask the question of who is responsible for the oversight, and based on whatever question, which is either could be overall oversight of research studies at your site, monitoring, auditing, what that person's role is in that process. We get a lot of different questions, different responses, and where if you're using the same, we're seeing the same reference, the same policies, the same VA directives, but we see multiple different types of responses come back, where those responses should be pretty much the same, even for almost for every VA, other than maybe the person who's responsible for oversight. So those are the issues that we've been facing, which have really lengthened the time that we have had in reviewing some of the VAs and the multiple rejections that we've had to do of worksheets to get the worksheet to where it needs to be before we can move it on to the level of getting it approved.
Hey, Diana, do you have any ideas about the best way we could, disseminate this, or any thoughts about how we could be sure that everybody gets the message, and or best practices, or kind of even almost like a standard format of what they should do, just like, here's what you need to put in here. Is there anything like that we could do to help you as a committee?
I have spoken with Karen Jeans with the ORD, and they are working on something. I'm not sure as to when that will happen, but they are working on developing some type of standard that all VA sites currently enrolled and those planning to enroll will be able to follow and hopefully eliminate these issues.
Okay, I can speak with Karen, and then I think there might be other things that we want to do as a committee that might be faster and more directed to our members, so that ORD's got a lot of different balls in the air at any one time. So we certainly have our own number of balls in the air, but I think this is something that's, critical to our operations. So maybe we can take point on this as well. So, So yeah, we'll talk with Karen and see what we can do to help, and then also find some means to get this information out better to others. Which kind of brings me to kind of another aside is we have the VA workbench on the SWOG site. It's horribly out of date. So we need to work on that. And so we might be reaching out to some of you to assist us with, updating documents and language and adding and subtracting whatever needs to be from that workbench. That's, one place we can work. And then kind of the previously mentioned kind of resource that we might want to use in conjunction with Navigator or others within VA to probably, kind of the shotgun approach is put the important information out there in as many places as possible so nobody misses it. So
I think in this case, it does if it's a new VA enrolling, it does delay tremendously the time it takes for us to get that site enrolled, which causes some anxiety for them because they want to get started in opening new studies, and until we have those annual institution worksheets approved, it delays their ability to finalize their enrollment. For those participating, I always ask that sometimes the worksheet goes out to them and they shoot it right back to me within 10 or 15 minutes and take a little bit more time, review, look at, I enter notes. So those notes, read the notes. If you're unsure of what what I'm asking for, what information I'm looking for, call our help desk. They'll connect you to me and we can further discuss it. Rather than the back and forth, rejections, and ensuring that all the questions, all the notes, all the questions have been addressed before resubmitting it to my queue for review again.
yeah, I'm thinking we might be able to develop a small kind of mentoring group, a resource group within our VA folks that I don't know where all the new sites are coming from, whether they're SWOG or Alliance or who their affiliate is, but we could I think reaching out to ORD is you can do that, but I don't know if you're going to get the answer back in the time frame or the format you would prefer. And you probably need some very specific things. So we could maybe find some well-trained, experienced folks on our side that can help others, new people, or even if it's an existing site that has new people on board that, somebody's left and now they don't know what to do because it's got dropped in their lap. So I think that's a function as a committee we can take on.
I'm from Philly, Philadelphia, and I'm one of those that's still struggling with this, and I actually don't know where it's stuck. So now I think I might have a sense of where it's stuck. Who in other VAs, who has actually been filling out this worksheet? Has it been the research office? Who does it normally? Like, I think that was one of, we couldn't figure out as we're trying to get this started.
Normally the coordinator, the research coordinator, whoever's kind of leading that oncology team or that SWOG effort at that facility. And again, it's not always clear of like who's to do what and how to, I think I initially did this for our site and I thought I knew a lot of stuff, but
yeah, and I think I struggled with figuring out who's supposed to do it and then finding out who would actually have the answers to the questions, because they seem on the surface pretty obvious, but when you actually try to answer them, they're actually not, especially if you're new to the institution or your institution doesn't have a strong research.
Yeah, and there might, VA's always got a couple wrinkles. I think every institution always has their own individual wrinkles, but And we always like to say, you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA, but there's still a lot of stuff that works across all the facilities that I think, and I think especially, with experienced folks, they've encountered different things in different situations that can't always go on an FAQ. And it's always good to talk to somebody. So we will work on that, Diana, to help you, to help us. So.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We do, the next part of the agenda is to talk about committee liaisons. We do have a few, we had heard from Dr. Chauncey, who is with our myeloma group. Let's see, Dr. Huang, you're with the lung group, correct? I don't have my list in front of me. I'm sorry. And then, is there anybody else, any other representatives from our disease committees in the room? And then GI, so we have GI and then Mike from Durham is, not Durham, Salisbury's in GU, I believe. So we do have some openings if anybody's interested. We have liaison needs in breast cancer, cancer survivorship. You said, now are you official liaison for the GI committee? Have we gone through that? Because I have it listed here as we have a GI opening.
I haven't done anything.
Okay, well, maybe we can get you official and you can be our official VA, please. Melanoma, prevention, epidemiology, cancer care delivery, early therapeutics, leukemia, and palliative end of life care. So if any of those are interested, or somebody who's interested, or know somebody who would be good for that but is not yet interested, let them know. So because I think it's really helpful. I think Tom Chauncey's a good example of, with 2209, of developing a trial with the VA in mind and keeping those aspects of something that fits a general population as well as the VA population. The application has been modified to eliminate the length of term for those liaison positions because it takes a while to get acclimated into that position. So we've eliminated that. And if you are interested or want to nominate somebody else, hopefully with their knowledge, you can reach out to the operations office, and they'll help you through the process, and we work through with our leadership group on the committee to get those up to the committee chairs and for approval. Anything I'm missing on that, Leslie?
I didn't know if any of the current liaison members wanted to share any of their experiences. I think it's been about a year, give or take, that they've been members. If there's any good experiences, bad experiences, anything that we on the committee could help them with, any suggestions they might have, or if there's no feedback at this point, that's fine too. I just kind of thought it might be nice to have a little open forum for a few minutes for them if they had any comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Helen from the VA Long Beach. I'm the lymphoma committee VA liaison. I have to admit, since I'm I'm a new investigator, so it was hard for me to join virtually and know how things work. I just kind of sit in the Zoom calls, kind of listening, which I know it's important to learn about the processes, but it's hard for me to really know, like meet people and understand how to get more involved.
Yeah, any thoughts on how to improve that process, especially for a new investigator? And Dana's coming up, so she.
Yeah, I do think it's definitely a challenge when you're participating remotely because you don't have as many opportunities to just stop and say hello to someone in the hallway and that kind of thing, which is one of the advantages of the in-person meetings. But I really would encourage you to reach out to the committee chair, the protocol support staff, and the statisticians in the committee, just to kind of get to know them and to have them, especially the protocol project manager, can kind of walk you through, what are the protocols that are currently in development? What are the steps in the development process? Where can you most be helpful in affecting any change to a protocol document? I would say, though, that in the lymphoma committee, they have a couple of studies that are really moving forward quickly. I think 2114 is getting pretty close to activation. There's another study right behind that that's getting pretty close to activation. And so with those studies being included in distribution of protocol drafts, so if the protocol project manager doesn't know that you're interested in reviewing a protocol draft, they won't include you on those distributions. So it's really important to let them know who you are and what your interest is. Those two studies are probably maybe a little too close to activation to be able to make any changes before they get activated, but we can always address any needs in a subsequent revision to the protocol. So it's never really too late, but it's definitely better to try to get into the process as early as possible. So in this case, the project manager is Kat Gassick in our office, and she would be the person to reach out to. You've probably seen her email address on a lot of the committee correspondence, so you can reach out directly to her and she can help you get engaged in the protocol review process.
Thank you. I didn't even realize that there were separate emails and separate meetings going on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's why we eliminated the length of term, because there's a lot of just like things that, not in the instruction manual of where to go and what to do and who to talk to. So
I was thinking too, as I was listening to Dana talk, that that's something I or we could be doing better on the front end, is providing some of this contact information to these new appointees. Here's the PC, here's the project manager, here's the data coordinator, that kind of thing, in case they, there's not a familiarity with SWOG very much to begin with, and it gives them a way to reach out better from their end. So if that's been lacking, I apologize for that to a certain degree, and I'll be looking to do that on a better basis from this end. So I appreciate that, Dr. Moss, some of that insight, and then Dana for all those suggestions.
yeah, that's good. There's a lot of stuff, obviously I didn't know there that we can talk about and be sure that our liaisons have the information they need and the contacts they need to move forward. Anything else on the liaison issue or membership? Let's see. And then I think finally some committee updates. I think the first thing I really want to do, and unfortunately she's not here as far as I know to hear this, but Sarah Schiller, who worked out of the Boston VA in Vision 1 and was critical in the development of Navigate, but really critical in the development and progress of this committee over the years, left VA and went to another position, and it is our huge loss, their huge gain. But without her assistance, I don't think we'd be anywhere near where we're at. They made me the committee chair, but I think she was really the chair. So, I would like to find some way for her extraordinary contributions and we'll get something out to her. And I think she knows that we miss her dearly. This was kind of a baby for her as well, very important to her, and she mentioned it many, many times. And I think in leaving her VA position, one of the stumbling blocks that kind of held her up as long as anything was her relationship with this committee. So we miss Sarah, but we're still in communication, and maybe we can get her back someday. So I don't know if Colleen or Mary, I know Mary Brophy's on, so maybe she'll be in touch with Sarah. As I mentioned before, we have some informal collaboration with NRG. We'd like to expand that some more. I may be hoping that we can convince NRG or NRG's nonprofit foundation to maybe be another storefront contributor. I think that would be good for them. I know they have something similar to the Hope Foundation. I don't know that they've explored the VA space as well as they can. So that's something we can talk to them about. Certainly the VA group in the NRG is very interested in that. It's just, getting those outside of that VA committee to get on board. So now to accrual, we'll have Leslie and Connie present that. That's what's on the screen now. So if you guys want to go through that, Leslie.
Sure. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you just, let me see if I can pin this so I can see it better. Basically, just all the VAs currently that are in our system. For the last few years, we put the accrual down. If you want to just go to the next slide very slowly, give people a chance to read each one. The only thing that I've noticed as you get towards the end, let's see if you want to go to next slide, please. A lot of the sites went down somewhat in their accrual rates. Not sure what this is attributed to fully, but I'm assuming after talking with some of the sites as well, that there's still a lot of status with the staff turnover. And even those that you do hire, it's hard to train them and then lose them in 3 months and start all over again. So I'm understanding a lot of it is still the COVID staff turnover and rehiring process. Next slide, please. The only change on this slide was since I did submit it, there are those 3 Kansas sites highlighted in blue, and Kansas City did make the decision to withdraw Leavenworth, and so they're in the process of working on that process. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, next slide, please. And then let's see, I think.
Is that it?
There should be one more.
Oh, there.
So yeah, this does show that there.
I needed help from the back.
Yeah, it's Saturday morning. I need a lot of help this morning. So you'll see there. Actually, I was kind of surprised. There is quite a significant drop, but again, I think there's just a lot of post-COVID coming back from things and dealing with things, and so I attribute it to that. I'm sure people in the room may be able to contribute their thoughts too if necessary. But so this is just basically a general overview of what we're seeing in the last 6 months. And then just a couple of slides towards the end. Next slide, please. That just showed the in a graph mode to show the top accruing slides that are currently happening. And then the last slide, just the history over the last few years from what the spreadsheet showed. So, and that should be it.
Okay.
I just want to say really quickly that this is very similar to what we're seeing across SWOG as a whole. So this isn't specific to the VA setting. The last couple of 6-month period, our accrual's been going down. It's a combination, we think, of some big studies that have closed and people having to deal with staff turnover, and they're not opening new studies as quickly as we would like them to.
Sure. Any other comments or questions for Wesley? Or
The parent institution, what is Maverick?
Maverick is the Visit One storefront. That's the starting storefront that we're basing our new storefronts on. All right. Anything else on that?
I know that I'm preaching to the choir because this is a huge issue across our industry in general with the Great Recession and whatnot, and resignation, if you will, rather. And I'm asking for solutions that other sites may have in terms of identifying staff and retaining staff. You know, we have a very small but mighty crew, and I cling to our staff like I'm, you know, a lost ship at night, and I'm trying to help us all get through it, but I don't want my staff to burn out because we can't get, you know, good quality staff who are interested in the VA. We are finding plenty of applicants who have experience, you know, pushing shopping carts and doing hair, because that's the net that we're casting that wide, but actually finding people who want to come into this has been very challenging. And I think we're not alone, but any solutions and contacts the VA may have to help us break through this so that we can continue to open and enroll trials and build teams. I think that a lot of us have big goals and want to push patient care forward, and I'm afraid to within our group if I can't make sure we staff out.
Yeah, and I know through the LPOP group that, I mean, they've had a huge issue with, you know, being able to hire, and that's certainly, you know, set them back a little way. So any great solutions? I don't think any VA HR people are here right now. Yeah, just so the people online can hear.
Question: are most people hiring their staff as VA staff hires or through the nonprofits?
Both.
And do you notice a speed to one or the other, or a preference on people want, which positions people want? And also, does anybody have any ideas? Like, we've been told the nonprofit is a faster hire, which I think it is, know how long it took me to get hired. But is the WOC process, because the people you're hiring can't hang out for 4 months going through the WOC process. So do people have a suggestion on how to keep people engaged while they go through that?
So the engagement part is the hard part. We're able to hire and pay people through our nonprofit, and they do sit for 4 to 6 months without a badge or a walk. And what happens is they'll stay in that position because they're getting paid to do nothing. And then even people who are super eager at the front end, like, they're not motivated by the time that we can actually get going. Because I can do so much training and onboarding face-to-face and job shadowing, but if they don't have an email address or don't have access to CPRS to learn charting, it's a huge problem. And we've lost multiple what I thought to be promising hires. It's, you know, within a couple of months of them getting their badge, because now they have to actually do the work, and it's too much after they set the paycheck.
So you actually have been paying them even before they've been
We've been required to pay them because they're a DRI hire, so that their start date is there, and then they get walked as they go. And we try to get their TMS training and all that kind of stuff. I throw oncology textbooks at them and try to outline and bring people into the fold that way. And it has been problematic. I occasionally get very lucky,
Yeah, that's not an easy fix. HR keeps saying they're trying to do better, but we have yet to see the fix. And I think a lot of it's, individual. I think a lot of HR has gone to VISN levels as opposed to individual facility levels. And I think it depends a lot on how good your HR people are.
And there's a lot of turnover in those departments as well, so continuity for research is really good.
Yeah, I know in Denver at one point, Denver's like the second largest federal employment area in the country outside of Washington, DC. And the Forest Service opened up a bunch of like really good paying HR positions that are not nearly as challenging as hiring doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. So they all went there. It was, so, I mean, we lost a ton of HR people at one point because of that. So, yeah, it's hard. We'll keep looking for solutions, but, and complaining as much as we can.
I'll jump in. I can't help with the hiring piece or the HR or getting people up and running, but SWOG does have some resources available for working within our Oncology Research Professionals Committee to brainstorm about retention pieces. And we just launched a whole slew of training opportunities in our training management system or learning management system and links to training opportunities. So if you have people who are real information seekers, there's a lot out there now. And so having those opportunities to, especially while they're sitting and waiting, to sort of walk through those sometimes can keep people more engaged for a while.
Yeah, Dana, speaking of the LMS, would it be possible to actually put some VA-specific training in that environment?
I think absolutely, yeah. In fact, Carol Lawback, who's our training manager, I've had her really focused on the ORP resources initially, but now that those links are all set up, I won't say that she has a whole lot of extra time, but it's a good opportunity now to kind of get in the next set of priorities.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something we could consider, and maybe that's on the central IRB front. I think that might be something applicable even outside of VA a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there's other smaller facilities could gain some knowledge from that. On diversity, equity, inclusion, we do actually, our PI at Rocky Mountain Regional VA is actually one of the DEI champions, Jessica McDermott. And I spoke with her a little bit last night about, what we can do on the committee in terms of DEI. And I think it was reiterated this morning at, I think it was the Board of Governors meeting. I can't remember, it was early. I was still getting caffeinated at that point. But we really need to do a better job of collection of data. And I think actually VA may be leading that more than maybe non-VA entities. And, the idea was that, we generally collect, race, ethnicity, and basic gender, but there's a lot of other things that we don't collect, or haven't been collected, but I think we do get some of that in VA, and we have a better database for that, rural, urban. I think there was a list of 14 or so different things that we could collect to really identify populations better, and see where we need to work on. So, and that's maybe something where, VA can really take a lead, because I think we do that a little bit better. We can probably do it better than we do. But I think we've made strides in that direction as a total organization. So kind of speaking to that, I was thinking maybe, and Leslie, this will be new to you.
Hey, wait a
that
second now, what are you getting me into?
So I was hoping to have a committee meeting maybe in early February sometime, and maybe we have Jessica speak at that a little bit more about DEI. And we can, revisit some of these issues and see where we progressed. And I think that also gives me a goal to make sure I get certain things done by a certain time instead of letting them percolate forever in the same inbox. So we can talk about a date for that, and it'll be a virtual meeting, and that'll be kind of midway between this meeting and the next in-person meeting in San Francisco, which hopefully even more people can attend, because San Francisco in May is not bad. So anything else on DEI that people would like to mention?
Hi, it's Helen again from the VA Long Beach. Again,
Yes.
sorry, being a new investigator, will you tell me how it currently works? What kind of data are collected and what you're hoping to include now?
I don't think I'm actually the best person to describe that. I think we can have Jessica and maybe the new DEI. It's hard to say with the extra I, DEI chair. Discuss that at our next meeting. I think I'd be doing a disservice to try to, with my peripheral knowledge of all this, to try to describe it for you. Would that be okay?
Of course. Will someone be able to send us this information so we can better contribute?
Okay, do we have something from the DEI committee that we can send out? No?
So I have to say their efforts have been, just over the last 6 months, really focused on what do we know? And they really haven't completed all of that yet. I mean, there are certain aspects that we collect on our patients. There are certain aspects we collect on our membership, and they've been focusing in both directions. So basics for patients obviously are gender, race, and ethnicity. And we also know age because we have their birth dates. We have very little information on our membership. And so some of the activities are focused more in expanding what we collect on patients. Some are focused more on expanding what we collect on our membership, including rural versus urban practice settings and things like gender identity. And I mean, there's a whole slew of proposed ideas that have not been officially accepted or rejected. So I think that's still a real gray area right now, but I think it's going to firm up in the next 6 months or so. So by the next group meeting, we'll probably have more. You can look, though, at the SWOG report of studies online on the SWOG website, and you can see the kind of information we have about patients definitely reflected in that. So if you want to look up information on say one study, if you want to say the currently accruing Hodgkin's lymphoma study 1826, you look up that in the report of studies and you get a good breakdown of where did the patients come from, which sites, and what's the breakdown by race, ethnicity, gender, age. In this case, the study also includes the Children's Oncology Group. So we've got an AYA component in that study as well. So you can kind of get a feel for the data that we have in the report of studies, but there's a lot more that we're looking at expanding to do in the future. And I think that inviting Dr. Dizon to either your February meeting or your next spring meeting would be a really good start to get everybody a baseline for what's going on and what we do now.
Yeah, that would be a definitely more informed description as well. So, so we'll see where they're at for the February meeting. They may not have that ready, so we'll see if it fits there, if it's better for the spring meeting in San Francisco. Anything else on that topic? And then,
Yeah, it's Helen again, just to follow
ahead.
up, because we know that socioeconomic status can really help level the playing field in terms of some of the racial disparities. And then we also have an opportunity to collect prospective data on exposure. So the VA, especially with military exposures, but then also broaden it to, community and other places like pesticide exposure, radiation, et cetera. So I think there could be a real opportunity to understand the things that we don't really understand in terms of the environmental and genetic interactions and clinical trial involvement.
Yeah, so fortunately, Jessica's already on that committee. I don't know if they need somebody else from VA or not. That might be, if they need somebody, that might be good. We could put somebody forward. Okay. And then just the last thing, for those of you that don't go, the Avaho meeting, the Association of VA Hematology Oncology, Sharon and Connie and I all went to that, and we had a booth at the Avaho meeting. There was a lot of interest in SWOG. There was a lot of interest in the storefront model. It was a really good meeting. For those that you didn't go, you really missed a good time. There was the big dinner on the deck of the USS Midway. And it was they really outdid themselves. I've been guaranteed that next year will not be as fun. And people will be somewhat disappointed, but it's a good meeting. And, I think as we go forward, we have, ribbons that identify you as, a SWOG person so that you can network with folks there. And I think as we go forward, we can definitely talk to the meeting committee there to maybe have a meeting space for people involved with SWOG or NCTN trials in general. They do talk a lot about VA trials and some pharma trials there, but I don't think we've really given NCTN trials the attention they need at Avaho, and so that is going to be an opportunity for us. So, and not that I'm a shill for Avaho or anything, but I think it's $150 membership, and then you can apply when the meeting comes up for travel support, and then you pay a registration, but then you get a hotel room and a flight, and then a lot of the meals are provided already. There's lunches and stuff like that. So, and it's a good meeting. It's it's VA people. There's a lot of vendors there that have VA focus, so they understand our population and how VA works. So it's a really good networking opportunity if you haven't done it before. So, and that's all I got. So it's open forum now. If there's something we didn't cover, something you want to cover, Sharon.
There were several comments put in the chat about suggestions on protocol language. If they could be emailed to myself, spalmer@swog.org, I'll put that in the chat, or Dr. Bartlett. That would be great as we go through our review of the protocol language.
Okay, great.
It would also be super helpful if you can also put your suggestion for not just what the problem is, but also some helpful things that could be changed too.
Okay, terrific. All right, so we're done a little early, so hopefully that gets you to your flight on time, or wherever you might be going. So thanks, everybody, and thanks, everybody online. It was great to see your names on the list here, so thanks.
Thank you.